Beginning development in 2011, Monolith Productions, assisted by Weta Workshop, started to create a game using a scrapped system they had tested from a cancelled Batman project based on Christopher Nolan's The Dark Knight trilogy. The results of their 3-year development time was revealed on November 12th of 2013, when Middle-earth's Shadow of Mordor was announced for the first time, giving gaming one of its biggest innovations and greatest tragedies in recent years: the Nemesis System.
Take him to Mordor. Goodbye. Say goodbye to the knife that you sharpen with your life. Say goodbye to the dark side.
Greetings, fellow Gravewalkers, and welcome back to another video, and this one about how the Nemesis System almost changed gaming forever, but unfortunately has been banished to a shadow realm that I'm not sure it will return from. Shadow of Mordor was finally released on September 30th of 2014, published by Warner Bros. Interactive Entertainment. Many people immediately knew that something was special about it. The first time players fought an orc captain, they likely saw nothing different to any other game's enemies, near endless hordes of weak orcs bolstering one particularly strong one. But then they met him again after he had died. Randomly, the orc returns, speaking of how you tried to put him down, and the scars of the attempt cover his body. Whether arrows, slashes, or fire, they show signs of what you did to them. But yet, here they stand. While some may have chalked it up to be a bug or glitch, it was anything but. This was intentional whether the players knew it or not. Soon they would be forced to flee from orcs to regenerate health, or be killed by them, only for them to be either pleased you've returned so they may attempt your demise again, or angered that you didn't stay in the ground like the other pinkskins. This was the Nemesis System at work. While nowhere near as advanced as it would become, it was still revolutionary in 2014, when NPC AI was either genuinely stupid or events had to be scripted for any level of remembrance. The Nemesis System made each orc unique in some way. While now we can pretty accurately guess a result the Nemesis System will give, back then it was new and no one knew the limits of what each orc was capable of. Orcs cheating death wasn't announced to the player either. It was something they had to be keen enough to notice by remembering a previous foe, whether through the orc's identity, personality, or traits. Maybe even all three in certain cases. Another benefit was that orcs could somewhat remember each other, or at least give the impression they could. This is something I think we could have potentially seen if things had gone differently. The orcs would sometimes refer to each other by name or continually bother another specific orc, giving the impression that the orcs were actually somewhat alive. The big place the Nemesis System thrived was the personalities and identities of the orcs. Every orc's personality was generated from many options, leaving each orc on any one playthrough to be entirely different to each other in the realms of dialogue. It also boasted a large library of unique names, making it rare to find orcs with similar names, and incredibly unlikely for two to have the same name. Titles differentiated them even more, giving them a special name to denote a specific thing about them, like the Destroyer or Blood Axe. The appearance of orcs was also very unique, as the Nemesis System would generate a new blend of armor pieces for each orc. This made them very visually distinctive, as some may share pieces or have entirely original sets. Another thing that made Shadow of Mordor's version of the Nemesis System so interesting to players was that every death on Talion's part is technically canon. If Talion dies, he's revived a short time later by the Wraith, allowing them to continue their fight against Sauron and the Black Captains. Playable characters simply don't die. That's a #1 rule of gaming, and if they do, you don't continue to play as them. Like with John Marston in Red Dead Redemption. After John's death, you play as his son, Jack. Lastly, a personal reason the Nemesis System was so important to Shadow of Mordor's success was the way it treated captains. Orcs in Middle-earth media are often treated much like the Foot Clan or Stormtroopers, an unending tide of unnamed enemies to oppose the heroes and be cannon fodder. Shadow of Mordor decided to go right in the middle, with unnamed grunts making up the bulk of enemies, while having captains be real challenging individuals. However, even this is turned on its head, as any grunt who kills Talion is immediately promoted to being a captain with all of the benefits of the Nemesis System. These orcs come into their own after being recognized and may prove troubling foe or useful ally. It's this that makes any time Talion dies to a grunt so interesting, as even defeat changes the status quo. Now, I don't feel I'm qualified to talk about the exact way the Nemesis system works, so for that, I'd recommend watching a video by Game Maker's Toolkit titled How the Nemesis System Creates Stories, as he breaks down how, in simple terms, the Nemesis system tracks events. But that brings me to the next stage of this beautiful system's life, Middle-earth Shadow of War. Exactly when Shadow of War began development seems to be unknown, at least in my search, but it is reasonable to assume it was sometime in 2015. Announced in March of 2017, the game would release later that year on October 10th of 2017. The Shadow series returned to the scene with a Nemesis system that was greatly improved in the 2 or so years between Shadow of Mordor and Shadow of War, boasting a system that was far more in-depth, able to track even more of what the player does and changing the way orcs remember each other. Upgrades were made to the way orcs cheat death, ambush the player, and even fight against Talion. Changes ranged from orcs actively hunting you down to catch the player off guard in unhelpful situations, to your followers deciding they dislike your command and revolting in single betrayal or large rebellions. One of the biggest differences was the way Monolith handled traits and identity. Orcs now had different classes and stats that players can influence and plan with, whether making allies stronger or knowing the best way to take down an enemy. The orcs also gained one of my favorite things: tribes, giving the orcs unique cultural identity that is easily distinguishable and interesting. The orcs suddenly were even more divided, allowing even more individuality. The stories told in Shadow of War could be far more in-depth and long-lasting, allowing true rivalries to form, ending in either a satisfying death or a great friend. The addition of tribes also made promoting orcs even more interesting. One of the few downgrades from Shadow of Mordor, however, is names. Orcs lost a good handful of names, especially the 2 vowel ones like Bagaboog, Lamlug, Ragdug, and Ukron. There was another downgrade in the flavor department, as orcs lost their motive text, making their own personal aspirations a little harder to pin down. Luckily, these downgrades were balanced out by all the positive upgrades the Nemesis system received. Shadow of War had a rough start marred by microtransactions and loot boxes, but this was soon patched out and DLC released. By May of 2018, the final DLC, Desolation of Mordor, was released, and while the prior Blade of Galadriel DLC did more for the Nemesis system, Desolation was a good way to end out the game's support, with the final patch being released in September of 2018, and unfortunately, this would be the last time we'd see the Nemesis system for the foreseeable future. Warner would proceed to sit on the Middle-earth game rights for 4 years before Middle-earth Enterprises was sold to Embracer Group, and they lost the rights for good. A year later, the game Gollum, announced in March of 2019 and delayed from its September 2021 release date, would be released on March 25th of 2023, and became a tragedy of its own. A game many were excited for was a commercial failure and led the developer and publisher, Daedalic Entertainment, to cancel a second Middle-earth-based game they had in production and completely close their dev department, moving the company into being only a publisher. With the loss of the Middle-earth game rights and a flock of failing IPs, Warner Bros. Chose to shut down Monolith Productions on February 25th, 2025, scrapping the development of a Wonder Woman game using the Nemesis system that Monolith had been working on for years at this point, and ending the chance of ever seeing a new entry in the Shadow series that would be recognizable. Now, here we are in April of 2025. Monolith is no longer around, WB doesn't own the rights to make Middle-earth games anymore, and the Nemesis system is trapped in limbo, still patented by Warner Bros. Until August 11th of 2036. WB now plans to work on their frontline IPs like DC and Harry Potter for the foreseeable future, and seems to have little to no plans of using the Nemesis system anytime soon, leaving one to wonder, will we ever see it again? The Nemesis system will likely, should it get used, make a re-debut in a DC game like Batman. The end of this saga is a sad one for me and many other people, and puts on spotlight how inept Warner Bros. Really are. Among the things they've killed now are Monolith Productions, Player First Games, Warner Bros. Games San Diego, and Rooster Teeth, leaving a trail of unfortunate companies in their wake, leaving one to wonder what could have been done differently. Flop after flop, WB has been failing both in the realm of film and gaming, and at least to me, it seems the writing is already on the wall for them. personally don't see WB making a comeback to true relevancy anytime soon, unless they change something very quickly. But enough on WB, they aren't the tragic ones here. They are the cause of the tragedy, killing a system that all of gaming could benefit from. Imagine a Bethesda or Rockstar game with the Nemesis system used to full effect, with over 8 years of extra development that has been hoarded away by a company who feels they need any advantage they can get, even if they would stand to make even more money by licensing it out. The Nemesis system is something truly beautiful, and also one of the biggest losses gaming has felt in recent years. And with that, we've come almost to the end of this video. As you can tell, it's a little late. I was intending to have this video out by late April. It is now early May, but with that, there is now a new Fortnite season. So if you play Fortnite and you're grabbing your Battle Pass or grabbing any of the awesome Star Wars stuff from the shop, consider using code WreckingBallBlue in the shop to support me. It would very much help me out. But with that, we've come to the end of this video. So if you did enjoy, consider hitting the like button down below because it tells me that you like the video. And if you like what I do, consider subscribing for more. And with that, I will see you all next time.